SJ. Welcome to Muskogee Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jahu Jeff Gedos, Muskogee Radio, Mabo Hedgedwitskits. Good morning on this beautiful morning after the storm. Reminds me of that song, There Got to Be a Morning After. Well, we've got a beautiful one here today, blue skies and lots of sun. Word has it it's going to be a beautiful day, so let's get out and enjoy it. We're still recovering from the virus, but if we just keep at it, I think we're gonna turn out okay. We have a couple of things lined up for us today. We'll be speaking with Dan Beaver of the Lighthorse Police Department about the sex registry that's being kept here at the Muskogee Creek Nation. And in the second portion of our program, Representative Scott Fettgetter's coming in. We'll ask him a few questions about what's going on around here and their relations with the Muskogee Creek Nation. But first of all, let me share something with you. We have noticed, and I don't know if you have noticed, when you go out to buy your butter or something like that, the Land O'Lakes packages are changed. No longer do they feature the Indian maiden kneeling and have been replaced by their logo, Land O'Lakes. We got a press release from them, and let me share a little bit of it first. It's farmer-owned cooperative Land O'Lakes has unveiled new packaging for the company's consumer-facing Land O'Lakes products featuring the farmers who are the foundation. The new packaging will show up in a variety of ways, including a front-of-package design that says farmer-owned instead of the Indian maiden. And in this press release, there's not a whole lot of discussion of the Indian maiden, although it has been, I guess, a target of some activists who said it was exploitive and that sort of thing. Here's what they did say, though. As a farmer-owned co-op, we feel the need to better connect with the men and women who grow our own food, so they're leaning toward the farmers, which is fine. Not much else about it, and though we have tried to get an interview with those folks, so far they have not responded and given me someone to chat with. But in the meantime, let's get on with the portion that we do have here in studio. Danny Beaver of the Lighthorse Tribal Police Force is with us to talk about the sex registry. First of all, let me get your rank and position correct first.
Okay. I'm Corporal Danny Beaver with Creek Nation Lighthorse Police. Right now, my assignment is the Capitol Patrol. I actually sit in the Chief's office as security for the Capitol itself. And that's basically my duties as the Chief's office in the sex offender registry.
Okay. It's a subject that's been developed over the last few years, I think, with more emphasis on dealing with sexual assault and abuse and that sort of thing, and kind of balancing out our communities. As far as the sex registry, and I presume you'll have to deal with all those crimes, or they get routed to you. How does that work?
Well, basically, a lot of my offenders come from the state that's already been sentenced. Which basically we do is that we monitor them anytime they come on the tribally owned property or restricted land that's owned in our jurisdictions like horsemen. Part of our Title 22, which is a tribal code through Creek Nation, states in there that any time a visiting sex offender comes on the property, they must register with the Lighthorse Police.
So that's an outgrowth of all of the focus on these particular crimes and how our community is trying to deal with it.
Yes, sir. It's one of those subjects that gets kind of touchy because a lot of these sex offenders, they're when they leave the state or get out of the state incarceration for probation, a lot of them are not notified if they live or reside on restricted land or come onto any kind of tribal property. They have to register with that tribe. So it's kind of like hit and miss. A lot of times, I hate to say it like that, but right now, what I'm trying to do to help that out is actually implemented decals that go on all the Creek Nation-owned property on the entering and exiting doors of all tribal property. That actually notifies them, says if if you're it's bright red, it says notice if you are a sex offender coming on the property, you must register with Light Horse Police Department. And it gives information how to contact and get that done.
Are most of these people offenders who have committed a crime on tribal lands, or are they coming from somewhere else, perhaps an urban setting or something? Or moving through?
A lot of it. Well, I've been over this sex offender registry for going on a little more than 2 years, and I have 26 subjects right now, or offenders on my list, and all these are from outside agencies that have been sentenced through the state. As far as Creek Nation sentencing them and are on our charges, I haven't had one yet. But it's like anything else. It's just a matter of time because we're constantly growing and constantly getting a lot of people onto our properties, our casinos and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of time before we get one. But the monitoring process is basically what we do, because us being a sovereign nation, it's kind of like a different country, I guess you'd say. And we just make sure we keep information on where they're at, where they're going, if they come on a property, just basically stuff it's part of them getting out of prison, part of their probation, part of them being a sex offender registry.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that those numbers stay low.
Yeah, I like anything else, I hope it does and pray it does, but it's just one of those things that I hate to say it, but it don't look like it is. It's starting to grow more and more.
Oh my gosh!
And it's a sad fact, because a lot of my offenders are aggravated, which means the crime was, real heinous, or they repeated it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm doing every effort I can, and the department's doing every effort they can to keep monitoring on them. And we have we actually keep in contact with other tribal nations as far as offenders moving from here to there. And one of the issues, like with our casinos, like the one in River Spirit, with them being right there on the interstate, a lot of our visitors that come to the casino are out of state, or just passing through. And a lot of times, we overlook them. It's not on purpose. It's because a lot of them don't have signs saying, "Hey, I'm a sex offender coming on your property. I need to register." They don't do that, and it's kind of like anything else. It's hit and miss. A lot of times, what I'm trying to work on is when they get the what they call the Players Club card.
Yeah,
they have to provide an ID. A lot of the states are actually putting sex offenders on their ID, and at that time we can identify them then, because they get in contact with us and we register them.
Let me back up just a little bit to something that you said just a moment or so ago. It kind of intrigued me. You said most of the folks on your list are aggravated, committed crimes that were aggravated. Yeah. We're not talking about just, an odd hand on a child or a woman's backside. We're talking about real violent.
Generally it's the age of the victim.
Okay.
Yeah, like under 15 years of age, or even younger than that, is considered aggravated, and the details of the crime will make it aggravated. Mm-hmm. And so, and a lot of them, like they said, the state of Oklahoma has a tier system, which is 1, 2, and 3. 1 is generally it's not as heinous as of course 3. 3 is going to be a lifetime, and a lifetime, it means every I believe it's every 30 days they have to check in with whoever they're registering with, the state or the county. The county or the city, and like ours. We technically don't monitor them because they don't fit into the criteria of Creek Nation. Criteria of Creek Nation for us monitoring is they got to fit 1 to 3, which is living, working, or attending school on our property. If they don't meet those 3, we don't monitor them. It means we don't go and check them. We don't make them come in. We don't do all that. They do that with the state. The only thing we require them to do is, like I said, check in. I get a photograph of them, fingerprint them, get every information I can, where they live, what they drive, who they live with. And after that, I'll actually enter them into what they call as a T-SOURCE, which is a Tribal and Territory Sex Offender Registry System, which is nationwide through every native nation. We have our own register system. And when I put them in there, every tribal nation has a log of that person with Creek Nation that they actually registered with us.
So a tribe in South Dakota or New Mexico then could look on the same registry and identify a person?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
They can actually go in there. And like I said, the tier system, and a lot of people are not familiar with it. Like a tier one is generally, it could be something minute as, urinating and officer catches you urinating, exposing your lower region. And it goes up to 3, which we talked about. This is the more heinous crimes.
Right.
But a lot of them are 3. I don't have any 1 or 2.
Yeah, we're talking violent assault and rape and
Yes, sir.
worse.
Yes, sir. And like I said, it's sad that it's like that. But a lot of states are having issues with that because there's a lot of repeat offenders and sex offenders. They when they get out in the system, they do have a hard time trying to find a job, trying to find a place to live because they got to meet all these criteria and where they can live and stay. And a lot of employers won't hire them because of their offense. And a lot of times they revert back to what they know. And I hate to say it, but what they do, knowing what they do, and they get caught up and they get sent back to prison, and they come back out, and it's a never-ending cycle because nowadays with this pandemic going on, they're releasing a lot of offenders.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do. Now, granted, the ones I have, they stick to the letter of the law. They do what they need to do. They actually come in and say, I don't want to get in any more trouble. I was told to come here, and they haven't given me any issues. And so I haven't really had an issue yet of any of my offenders, but it's like anything else. It's just a matter of time before something happens.
Let me ask you, perhaps this is a bit of speculation too, is how would you measure the problem facing the Creek Nation as far as sex offenders? Is it bad? I mean, is it saturated, or is it fairly light and as much as can be under control?
Well, sex offenders in general, like just recently I helped out with U.S. Marshals in Muskogee County Sheriff's Office doing a check of all their offenders in that county alone. And Muskogee County alone has 200 in that county alone. And now that's not I wouldn't consider that a big metropolitan area, but still 200 is not a good number. And Tulsa's right about, I want to say, between 500 and 700. And what a lot of the issue with big cities is a lot of homeless. When you get some sex offenders that are homeless, and it's hard to monitor the homeless. And some agencies require them to come in and check in daily because they are homeless. Now, places like California, excuse me, every sex offender in California, once they get out, they're hit with an ankle monitor, regardless if they're homeless or not. And I believe that's one of the best ways, I think, of monitoring somebody's ankle monitor.
Now, it would seem like it might be fairly easy to cut that thing off and just take off. But that in itself is like another crime also, right? Yes,
it is another crime, and it also detects when you detach, when you tamper with it, it'll set off too.
Oh, gosh.
So, it's one of those things that, they pretty much prepared it for everything from being cut off to being soaked in water to, everything they could think of, But, that's another crime in itself, and it violates their probation. They go right back to prison.
Gosh. Now, as you started there, I guess the process and the information that you take down. So if you have someone, say, from Arizona who's coming in to go to work here in Okmulgee for the tribe or something like that, what is that information that will be taken down and included and kept on file?
Well, if they come to work and fit within that criteria post monitoring, they would come in. I get a fingerprint photograph of them, all their basic information around the criminal history on them. I get a picture of their vehicle, any vehicle they have access to, and where they're staying. If they happen to be staying in a hotel, I'll go into that hotel, talk with them, take a picture of where the room is, make sure it fits within the safety zone area, make sure it's not around any kind of playgrounds, any place where children or young adults gather and stuff like that. And if it don't, I'll advise them he needs to move and give them a set time to move. And if he is a sex offender, I'll contact where he's coming from to work. If he's from Arizona, like you said, I'll contact DOC in Arizona and ask him, does he have permission to be over here? Do you know he's over here? And get communication with him and what kind of subject is, and is he giving problems? Because a lot of times, you'd be amazed, a lot of times the original agency who's registering don't know they left to go to work, don't know they moved or not. So not only could I charge them, but they can in turn charge them too. So
So the next step, I guess, would be to pick somebody up if they are in violation, or
yeah,
whatever.
we'll file on them federally through
Okay.
federal court, and then they get a warrant for their arrest, and they go back to prison, and like anything else, they'll go in front of the judge and plead his side, and if he's found guilty, he'll do his time here. Then after that, he'll go back to Arizona, and they'll have no charge on him there because it's two different crimes committed in two different states.
Okay, so the first charge, would that be a federal charge?
Yes,
Okay, so, which is
A felony.
carries a bigger hammer than it.
yes, sir. Felony.
Okay. Now, as the Creek Nation has been responding to this campaign, do you think maybe you're staying on top of it? Do you have people who understand that, well, I'm in this system, so I better play?
The offender themselves. Yeah, a lot of them are. Well, I'd say a few of them are understanding it just due to the decals I put up on the properties. They'll read them and say, they'll come to light that, I'm a sex offender, I need to do this, and it tells them what to do. And a lot of times they like to play the ignorant card. Well, I didn't know. No one came told me. My probation officer didn't tell me. I'll come here all the time. No one said anything. But it's not everybody's responsibility. It's their responsibility when they get out about on probation or as a sex offender to follow up and make sure they've adhered to all the laws that require them to do. But like I said, I have I talked to quite a few offenders from pretty much all over the state.
Does one particular group appear more often? I don't know if you'd want to say one tribe, perhaps, or one age group, or someone from a particular geographic region.
It just varies. It varies. I've had some subjects as young as early 20s to even in their 50s, from all kind of economic backgrounds, from even some of the military branch of the military. And it's not set to one area or one criteria. It's just all over.
It can affect or include anybody. Then, what's the ratio of male to female, by the way?
Right now, I have all males. All males. I haven't had a female, but there's very few females, but there are females. And but like I said, I haven't had any females at this time registered with me.
That's kind of, I assume that's not the case in other places. Huh?
No, the state of Oklahoma has a website, a sex offender website. The public can go on and actually put the name in there, and it'll actually let them know that the subject they're talking about is a sex offender. But you can go through there and actually it's set up. A lot of it's male and female. It's down to the criteria, and you can look, and pretty much 80% of the page is male, and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 are female.
Right. I took a couple of moments to look at the website, and I guess there's a search capability there.
Yes, sir.
We can insert someone's name and find out. Well, I didn't go that far, but
Yeah.
but you could obtain some information there.
Yes, sir. It'll give you some. It won't give you all the information, like their charges. Let me take that back because I haven't looked at it as a non-officer. I have actually log in for me to look at it, so I get more details than any of the public does. So actually, I don't know exactly what the public sees. I don't want to sit there and say, you'll see this or this, because when I log in, it's through law enforcement side. So I have access to a lot more information when I look at it.
So you get more than this nosy reporter would.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The excuse me.
And it's not too much. I believe it's generally just the details of the charges. It's basically what it is.
It's not going to go into detail or anything.
No, and it won't go into detail when you look at it.
And now, if let me ask you a kind of a related question, and that kind of a step back is that how does one go about conducting a search? If you say someone moves into your neighborhood and you're a little suspicious, how do you go about finding this information?
You can contact a local law enforcement agency and ask them what your sex offender, who's over your sex offenders in that area, and they'll put you in contact, or actually they usually have some officer on staff who has a registry, and they'll put you in contact. And also, like the website you looked at, will provide an address for the subject.
But that's somewhat limited, and there is confidential information.
Well, it has a little bit of confidentiality, but as far as the address of the subject, you should have access to that because you being in public, but like I said, the best way is contact the local agency, law enforcement agency, and they'll be able to tell you.
Okay, and this is for serious questions and not for someone who's just goofing around with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I always tell people, because I get so every now and then I get a call that somebody who was sex offender moved in an area, and I do take those very seriously, even though it might not be within our jurisdiction. And I always call the local agency and I'll let them know that, hey, I got a Creek citizens inquiring about a possible sex offender in their area, and I'll talk to them. And then if they say that subject's not a registered sex offender or it's not an area or that's not any of theirs, I'll try to do as much digging as I can. And if it's not a sex offender or he's not living in an area, I'll make sure I contact that citizen and just inform him, that he doesn't reside there, and that there's, if they have any more questions, I'll give them my direct number and so they can call me.
Okay, have you had many situations where you might find someone who's a little more spectacular, shall we say, than others, with a more heinous record or something that caught your attention with a number of offenses or anything like that?
Well, I take all of them pretty seriously. I don't want to set off one. A sex offender, their mentality, something I'll never understand. I'm never going to try to understand. I don't know why they did what they did. I'm not the judge on that. My thing is to make sure they follow and adhere to the laws that Creek Nation has presented on them when they come onto our property. And I'll treat them all pretty much the same regardless of how heinous their crime is. Even if it's just like exposing themselves behind a dumpster to having multiple incidences with young children, I'll treat them all the same. That way they know when they come and talk to me, it's straightforward, and they kind of expect that I'm going to adhere to the laws, and they know they have to follow the rules if they're going to be on our land. And if not, I want them to understand that I'll prosecute them every step of the way if they break the law, because I take our citizens very seriously and our protection very seriously.
Do these people really know what the difference is when they come onto tribal federal lands as opposed to state lands?
Some of them do. A lot of them do understand that, but a lot of them that are non-native, because I do have a couple that are non-native, and they're from usually the casino. They don't understand. They think it's just another business. Until they see that sign on the door, then they kind of, it's that light bulb in their head, and then they contact me, and I make them understand, with us being a sovereign nation, we're not, the state or the county. This is something totally different. You have to register if you're going to be on our property.
Now, in years past, we had talked to some officers who were enforcing things like traffic laws and pulled someone over and said, the driver says, well, you can't do nothing to me. I'm not an Indian, and I'm not on your land or whatever else. That's not the case, perhaps?
Well, excuse me. A lot of our officers do have commissions or cross commissions with different counties, and that allows the officers to enforce laws. Basically, we're there to help the local agency, and basically just provide more protection for the citizens, non-citizens also as well. Because even if I was to drive home and see a vehicle all over the road, I will stop it. And make sure the driver's okay, because that not only don't affect, the driver affects the public in general. And I want to make sure everybody's, safe going home, and make sure that subject is safe. And that's the only thing we're doing. And if there is an issue where we're not commissioned, we'll call the local agency and they'll come out, and we'll hold the scene until they come out.
That was my next question. At that point, when you've got them stopped, you'll turn it over to, say, Highway Patrol or Okmulgee County or whoever.
And a lot of the agencies do ask us to come out to assist them. Then we're covered underneath them.
I was also curious about that cooperation between the agencies. I know some places have got these mutual consent.
Mutual health agreements.
Yeah.
And that's, to me personally, I think that's a good thing to have, because, our citizens are not set in one area. We're spread out all over the state. And not only that, a lot of these little agencies don't have the budget to do a lot of the equipment, have all the training that I greatly appreciate Light Horse has. I've been fortunate to be in their training, and man, it's amazing. And coming from a stateside agency to this one, it's a totally 180. Because when I was on stateside, everything was budget. You know, with the city council, you know, they didn't have much money. We didn't have a lot of hand-me-downs on the state side, from vests to uniforms to even cars, you know, and Light Horse has been able to provide us some great equipment to allow us to do the best we can with our jobs. There's no reason why we can't, and I'm just very fortunate to be one of these great group of guys. And like I said, a lot of these little agencies that I feel, you know, when they call us out, I'm fortunate to go out, and I'm happy to go out and help them, because they are our brothers and sisters.
Sure.
You know.
And they'd be there for you if you need it.
And a lot of these small agencies do have hired citizens that work with them, you know. And like I said, anything that shows that we can get their back, they'll end up getting ours, and, you know, just like a big family looking out for each other.
Now, this next question is a little more personal, but not too personal. And that's you being a native guy, you come here working for the Muskogee Creek Nation. I presume your family is Creek.
Yes, sir.
And everything else. You might have dance grounds, you might have clan. How does that affect you when you're performing your task, and when you might run across another Creek person, or perhaps someone from your extended family? I mean, ouch, you know, kind of thing.
I think it helps me out a lot. I was, you know, raised down in the Wetumpka area, way down south, you know, went to church, went to ceremony grounds down there, you know, and it helps me now, because when we go down there in that area, I guess you would say south of I-40, it's real rural, real traditional, some areas.
Or we used to say out in the sticks.
Yeah, out in the sticks. And when I first started here, I was actually on night shift, and for the first 2 years, I'd go out there and check ceremony grounds, check a lot of these Indian churches that were, you know, way back out in the woods, and a lot of them didn't have no yard lights and big street lights, you know. And I'd sit out there, and we did have an issue at that time with copper thieves going out there and stealing, breaking into AC units of these churches. Well, with all them churches spread out, it's hard to catch anybody, because a lot of these are on long dirt roads, and they can see you coming down the road, and they can just jump in the car and leave. So I used to try to camp out, pull in the back of the woods and tree line of these churches where they couldn't see me, and wait them out, you know, like 30, 40 minutes here and there, trying to go from each church. That way I can see if anybody comes up, you know. Because you can't really surprise, like I said, you can't really surprise somebody coming down the dirt road. They'll see you coming a mile away. And that, being born and raised down there, it allowed me to know where all these churches are, where the back roads are, who lived where preachers lived, where the deacons lived, where the amigos of these grounds lived, who to get in contact with, something that was to happen on these properties. And my family, you know, a lot of these amigos and a lot of these preachers know my family. I have family members that are preachers. I have family members with Hillis Hayes, you know, and so it allowed me to basically get a good communication with them, and they really, you know, kind of build that trust, because they knew who my family was.
Right.
And nowadays, with a lot of these new officers coming about, a lot of them wasn't raised around that area. A lot of them don't understand that area, so it allows me to teach these new officers coming on that, you know, how to basically etiquette for churches, for grounds, you know, what to do, what not to do, you know, where to go, what not to go. And I think it's a big plus for me being raised in the area, helping these guys. And I always tell these new guys, you know, to learn the language, different thing, just learn common greetings, and that will actually open the door to communication to all these elders and all these traditional people. You actually show some sort of effort that you're trying to know who you're working with and who you're working for, it'll break down a lot of walls of distrust.
Right. The culture really benefits you there, and you allow it to rather than kind of force it.
Yes, sir. And a lot of these new guys, you know, like I said, it's not their fault because they wasn't raised around it. They don't understand it, you know, and I get asked a lot of questions as far as, you know, medicine and stuff like that. And, you know, even something minute is feathers in the cars and stuff like that. And I always try to tell these guys, you know, I don't know, being in Oklahoma, there's so many different tribes that are real close, and there's intermixing. And I always tell them, just because, you know, we hold something special as medicine, don't mean another tribe don't. I said, you gotta, you know, look outside the box a lot of times. And I said, a lot of these feathers is generally, you know, a lot of these feathers are protections feathers. You know, they have them in their cars. You know, they'll actually, you know, and I always tell them, just be careful. I said, don't touch anything like that. And I said, leave it alone. It's something, it's a religious right for them people to have that in their car. You got to be very respectful for that.
Exactly.
And I always tell these guys, if you don't understand it, if you don't like it, don't show it. Just have respect for it. You know, it's not your place to accept it. It's your place to respect it.
Right.
And so a lot of these guys understand that and been real open and real willing to work and understand work with Creek Nation, because that's what I tell them. When you signed on to work with the nation, you understand that you signed on to work with different tribes, different cultures, different backgrounds, different beliefs. And you got to, even though you might have been raised Catholic all your life and that ain't what you do, you don't need to be out there explaining, you know, that's wrong, that's not right, that's not your place.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
you was raised the way you want to believe. The same thing with them people. You got to give the same respect.
And they'll give it to you.
No, yes, sir.
We gonna have to wrap this up, but
sure.
if something else you want to share real quick?
No, I would just, like I said, I'll just make sure that everybody understands, you know, with being a sex offenders coming on the Creek Nation, we do register them, and we do monitor them once they meet that criterion. And if anybody has any questions about a sex offender, regardless if they're native or non-native, they can call our office and get in contact with me, and I'll answer their questions at any time, and hopefully give them that peace of mind that everything's okay. And if they don't, you know, like I said, I'll actually come out and talk to them, and you know, if they need a copy of the law, I'll bring it to them too, and make sure they understand it. And like I said, I'm here to help.
Okay, yeah, and we see the little stickers on the doors, all of it.
Yeah, I am very proud of those stickers because I worked real hard. I had to get in contact with a lot of different agencies to figure out the best way to you know, let people or let sex offenders know that, you know, they need to register. And a lot of a lot of different tribes were doing the stickers or decals on the doors.
Yeah.
And just recently, it just got signed into law. So.
Oh, all right. Well, Dan Beaver, thank you so much for coming in this morning. We appreciate you making some time off what's got to be a pretty busy schedule with the corona and the weather and everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just say again, Mado, and we're going to keep our eye on this, and don't be too surprised if I call you again.
Oh, thank you, Mado.
All right, we're going to take a short pause. I believe Mr. Fedgetter has arrived at the radio station, so we'll want to chat with him this afternoon about what's going on in this area and there's connections with the tribe. So please stay with us here on Muskogee Radio here on The Brew.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Who am I? Am I native? I don't want people assuming things because I'm Indian. I just want to be me. But how do I live in two worlds? Some guys just check out by doing meth. But that ain't for me. Because I see my family, my friends, my drum making, my future. There are a lot of cool things about being who I am. And meth isn't one of them.
Learn more at ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Welcome back to Muskogee Radio here on The Brew here in beautiful downtown Okmulgee here. We have Representative Scott Fedgetter in studio now. He's taken time to join another program here on The Brew, and we're glad to have him here on Muskogee Radio. So welcome, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
We have been thinking about what kind of questions we wanted to fire at you.
Yeah.
And mostly, of course, this being Muskogee Radio is like how you connect with the tribe and things like that. So let's start there. We'll give you a couple minutes there to kind of share what you got.
Well, the listeners should know that I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation, and so sovereignty and tribal rights are very important to me. I've worked really hard over the past 4 years to develop relationships with Muskogee Creek Nation, and I feel like that with the new administration especially, that we're having much better dialogue and communication. So I'm real happy about that with Chief Hill, his staff, and Second Chief Beaver.
Yes, I have to honestly admit I've been a bit impressed with Chief Hill. He's been quite open with us and answered our questions and provided resources that, let's say, a previous administration did not. And we won't get into that, but I kind of like the way things are going. So how would you characterize then the relationship between the Muskogee Creek Nation and the rest of our community here?
Well, I think that there's some things that have gone on in the past within the community between the city and the nation. There probably needs to be a little bit of healing there and some better communication together and working together, for common goals and making sure that the citizens of Okmulgee County are taken care of, and then the citizens within the tribal boundaries are taken care of as well.
We've experienced a best phrase is ignorance between the two in the past, not only here but across the nation with other tribes and different locations around the country. How would you just sort of perhaps speculate or characterize what's going on between the folks here in Okmulgee downtown here or whatever and the Muskogee Creek Nation? How does that fit?
Well, it's interesting because you have the different groups. You have Main Street, you have the municipality, you have the Chamber of Commerce, and then just other groups of people who are business owners that are working. And I've always found, as it pertains to downtown, it's extremely important to us that we make sure that we have communication and good relationship with the nation, because anchoring our downtown is the council house. Mm-hmm. And so when we have plans and make plans and move forward on different things and projects, we should always be having conversations, between all the groups that would be involved, and especially Muskogee Creek Nation, because, like I said, the council house anchors the downtown area.
One of the largest employers in the county here also, right?
Yes. Yeah, and in the legislature, my spoke in the wheel is the economic growth and making sure we have good opportunities for people, for good jobs, good training, and those types of things. So it's important that, especially in our rural communities, that people identify the contribution that the nations, all 39, make to those specific communities that they're in, and identify the importance of having those good relationships.
Well, in I think too many cases, people have characterized the relationship as well. They got presented jobs, they developed jobs, but who cares about a waitress working a casino? There's something related to that, which personally find grossly inaccurate and somewhat offensive. But it's much more than that. There's a ripple effect here between the tribe and its goals and the local economy, how it is affected and responds.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it doesn't matter what the level of job is. It's the fact that the Muskogee Creek Nation is providing income for a family, or maybe both incomes for a family, and that's what's important. And when you look at our tribal nations, they try to always do the right thing for their employees, the best I can see. I mean, I have many conversations with the Chickasaw Nation and the Choctaw Nation, and understand a lot more about their employment and how they go about things than I have with the Muskogee Creek Nation, because I had a closer connection there. Sure. These last 4 years, but we're working on building that relationship here so that I understand better. But it doesn't matter what level the job is. What matters is that people have an ability to feed their families.
Right.
And during this COVID crisis, if I'm not mistaken, Muskogee Creek Nation is taking very good care of their employees during this time. Man, it got windy out there.
Right, I was going to say, Huddle Taco out there. Big wind. Of course, not as big as it was last night, but it's enough to make its presence known. Now, as we have watched let's stick with the casinos for a second here. They've kept their people on payroll. and it doesn't matter, what skin color they were, as you say, what level, they have an income. Of course, there is a limit to that. We'll probably have to deal with that when it comes, but it was an amazing sign that people said, no, we understand, you got to feed your kids. They still have to deal with the world, or perhaps an education or something with this COVID-19 virus, and we're going to help out as much as possible.
Yeah.
So have you had some feedback then from the community?
Well, I haven't had a whole lot of feedback on that, but I mean, when you think back over the past 12 months, or the past year, the Muskogee Creek Nation has been at the forefront of how they're treating their employees during crisis. We had the floods last year. Muskogee Creek Nation took care of their employees during that time. COVID-19 now, Muskogee Creek Nation is taking care of those families and those employees now. So I haven't had a lot of feedback, but I commend the tribe on the things that they're doing to make sure that these families, have the income that they need to sustain themselves. One of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot with COVID-19, and about 3 weeks ago, excuse me, I got with some of my fellow House members, and we created a public service announcement that went out, and it was titled "Help Your House." And one of the things people aren't talking about when they talk about the effects of families in this time is the mental health aspect. We're focused on hospital beds, and we're focused on the death rate and those things, which are all extremely important. But over the past few weeks, I have personal friends that have personally known someone else who've committed suicide. Domestic violence and abuse calls are up, and God only knows what's going on with some of our children. That their family situation isn't great. And so, I think it's important, that the nation start to look at those things as well. But what was most important is taking care of people so that financially they were able to relieve some of that stress and tension.
We had a couple of folks from the SANE program, the Sexual Assault Nurses program, and they made that same point that during this particular period with the virus and everyone quarantined at home, we're starting to really get on each other's nerves.
Yeah.
Have you seen the community respond and try and provide some other avenues to release that pent-up energy?
I haven't seen a whole lot of it across the state, and in fact, there's been a couple of times I would see different commercials come on, TV, and they, kind of, you could tell by the music it was kind of a public service announcement, but none of them directly seem to be addressing that mental health issue. And I've seen people say, well, you should be blessed right now. You're getting to spend all this time with your family. And I understand that, and that's important. And in our culture, we've changed from when I was a kid. We don't spend as much time with our family as we should. And hopefully this helps us understand the need and, the sense of urgency to spend more time with our loved ones. But with that being said, being trapped in a house and feeling inside like I can't leave and actually being scared, it triggers a whole different set of emotions within a person that aren't always, ideal for a circumstance.
I was thinking, and I've chatted with a few of my friends and colleagues, and it's like, here I am home with you all day. Is this what you really like during the day? I mean, right. Good Lord, I'm glad I go to work. That kind of thing, or you're really starting to get on my nerves, which actually has translated into domestic violence change there.
Yeah.
Let's stick with the tribes and the state here for a few minutes now. What is your perception of the state legislature as it relates to Native American affairs? Not just the Creeks, but the other 38 tribes.
I think there's a narrative out there that there's not a lot of support for the nations in the state, but, my experience has been very positive with the legislative body. Both the House and the Senate, very involved and in tune with the issues. I mean, there's not a lot of issues that come to us being a sovereign nation and the way that all works, but there are occasional issues that come up. And the legislative body, to me, I can speak specifically to the House, but the overall body seems to be very favorable towards those partnerships and those relationships. In the House, it's very receptive. I mean, I don't know of, a handful of legislators that may not have a great perception or understanding of how our tribal nations work. There'd just be a handful, but I think you have a lot of support in the House especially, but overall in the legislature.
Well, the legislature in the past had kind of shown some of its weakness in educational process. And we got comments from some legislators who had no idea of the relationship between the federal governments and tribal governments. They heard some comments, a race-based kind of thing, which is not the case.
Right.
So things have improved, do you think, to a more educated legislature as far as Native peoples?
Yeah, I was elected the first time. I'm in my sixth session, but it's been 4 years. We had a couple special sessions in there. But when I first came in, there were several Native citizens that came in when I did. And so we worked real hard with, like I said, the Choctaw Nation, the Chickasaw Nation, to help educate. We had, a couple of issues. Of course, we had a big budget hole, and the nations were coming to us wanting us to pass the ball and dice gaming. And so we had several educational sessions, with those two tribes. Now I worked real hard. In fact, we have what's called the Native American Caucus, and that's where Native Americans in the legislature will have lunch, once a month or every so often, and discuss Native issues. And Muscogee Creek Nation actually hosted one of those luncheons one time, and I stood up and I made my voice be heard to the administration that it's very important that Muscogee Creek Nation have a presence like the Choctaws and the Chickasaws and the Cherokees at the Capitol, so that we hear those needs, wants, and objectives that the tribe is looking for, right now.
So how would you characterize your relationship with Chief Hill?
We've had a few brief interactions. Jason Salzman and I, we speak regularly. And I have shared my desire to have a better relationship with Chief Hill as well as the second chief, and we're working to set up a meeting where we can just kind of have a sit down and let them really just kind of pick my brain like you're doing today on my thoughts and where I'm at. It's easy to say that I support the tribes. It's a whole other deal when you've put forth effort to show that support in my role.
All right, let's put you on the spot then.
Okay.
Right now, the relationship between Governor Kevin Stitt and tribal governments, let's say it's not real nice at the moment.
Sure.
Of course, the gaming compacts and other issues have come to the surface and really caused a split because of some of the governor's actions.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a big legal fight saying, you can do this with gaming, but you can't do that. And of course, the tribes are saying, whoa, this is a treaty, right? This is federal law, and you can't just make it up.
Yeah.
So how do you see that schism being developed? And one other point I might want to throw into the mix was that Imagine That campaign, where all of a sudden this out-of-state outfit decided that the history of Oklahoma began with the land rush.
Yeah.
And, a lot of folks, my friends and family and colleagues, let's say the fur on the back of our necks stood up,
Sure.
because
Sure.
of, whoa, wait a minute, and as I always like to say, the land rush is one thing, but remember whose land they were rushing over.
Absolutely.
So that's developed to where it is really a thing that needs to be settled down in a major fashion. So how would you see that divide developing there?
Sure. No, those are both great questions. My stance, and I've made it very public where I stand on the tribal compact issues. The governor, in my opinion, is out of line according to statute. I agree with General Hunter, as well as Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate, Greg Treat, and Speaker McCall in the House. I said Speaker Pro Tem. He's the Pro Tem. No, the Speaker Pro Tem's in the House, but anyway, got the title messed up. But I'm very firm in my belief that the gaming compacts auto-renewed January 1st of this year, and the language in there was somewhat dicey from the way they set it up. But with that being said, I'm very specific that I've been very public that I believe Governor Stitt is wrong, and this fight should have never happened in the first place. I used to say that I think the governor picked a fight unintentionally. I don't think he realized what he was getting into as a freshman governor. I'm starting to now see a trend and a pattern that has me concerned. But with that being said, the two compacts that were recently signed, I believe without legislative action, that they're null and void at this point. And I believe that they're also I believe they also show, that the governor is not working on building relationships. And right now, we need to be united for Oklahoma, not divided in Oklahoma.
It would appear to me, just on the outside looking in, that was a divide and conquer tactic. Because I was at the press conference when 39 tribes stood up and said, hey, wait a minute, this is the law, you got to play by the rules. And then later on, the Comanches and Otoe-Missourians, I believe, made a deal.
Yeah.
And, of course, I'm sure Stitt was delighted.
Sure.
Other tribes have condemned it.
Yeah.
And saying no. And I think I heard a rumor, let's say rumor at this point, that those two tribes may be removed from the Indian Gaming Commission or Association. Saying, okay, you want to walk your own way? Then walk your own way.
Right.
So that's not gotten Stitt any brownie points in Native America. Plus the fact that, of course, A.G. Hunter pulled out of the suit and said, no, this is wrong.
Yep.
And his own Native liaison, Lisa Billy, said, nope, this is wrong. We told you not to do this, but you did it anyway.
Right.
So, adios, Jack, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So that none of that looks good.
Well,
so,
and then you couple on top of that we're going to allow the Comanches to put 3 new casinos in Chickasaw country, and the Potos, we're going to allow them 3 new casinos in, I believe, Pawnee counties. It's just in my estimation, it's just not the right way to be going about things right now. We should be, like I said, united in Oklahoma. Our tribal partners are partners. Mm-hmm. They're not us versus them. It should never be that way. And especially us, those of us in the rural communities, we're not afraid to stay. I'm not afraid to stand up and say, hey, I drive down Mission Lane every day, and there's a brand new, beautiful road that my citizens and my district get to use, and that would not have happened without Muskogee Creek Nation. Mm-hmm. And there's many, many other things, of course, but it's one example that I can say every day, I use. And so, as far as the new branding goes, I know the governor pretty well, but I know the lieutenant governor very well, Matt Pinnell. Matt has come out publicly and said, "Hey, there was some oversight here," and I know Matt did not mean anything intentionally. Now, there's a little bit, they hired this out-of-state company, but there were out of country, actually. They were from Canada, but the majority of the money went to 200 Oklahomans that worked on that campaign. The majority of the money is the way I understand it. And, Chickasaw Nation contributed $50,000, I believe, to that campaign as well. And so I know that there was Native American representation. And I specifically remember, in the symbolism of the, and keep in mind, now this is like the state agency logo, right? This is just to kind of get everybody across the board, and it's saving the state, because of just development fees and different things like that, it saves the state several hundred millions of dollars by going this route. So I don't think Matt intentionally meant to miss there, and in fact, I know he didn't, and he felt very bad that they had made the misstep, and from our conversations.
Yeah, we got the press release on the, let's call it correction or
Yeah.
backtracking a little
Yeah.
bit. So, all right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we all make mistakes in life, and when we make mistakes, the way you determine, the person is how they respond or react to the mistake. If you go to the doctor and he says your body's reacting to the medicine, that's bad. If you go to the doctor and he says it's responding to the medicine, that's good. So the intentions of a person based on whether they respond or they react to a situation.
Right. Let's look ahead just a little bit. Are there things on the horizon involving, of course, Muskogee Creek or other Native American tribes on your agenda, the things that you're going to be pursuing, things you'd like to see develop and happen?
Well, one of the things, legislatively that I've worked on extensively for the past 2 years is when we were going through the teacher walkout and the budget crisis and all that, we made a change in the standard itemized deductions, for example, for our citizens in Oklahoma, and we capped it at $17,000, so you can't write off more than $17,000 on your state taxes. Well, it was an oversight. The tribes didn't catch it, we didn't catch it, but that's had a huge impact on the gaming industry in our state. And, I have been, a strong advocate. We passed a bill through the House last year to fix that issue. I can tell you the Choctaw Nation lost $11 million alone because of that one oversight that none of us caught. And we were all in negotiations and talks at that time, and it was just clear oversight. But, I've been one who's been very vocal that we should be fixing that right now. We shouldn't be waiting. It shouldn't be a part of compact negotiations. We should fix that right now.
What do you see as a solution for the growing gap between the governor and tribal governments? What needs to be done?
Well, I think first of all, the governor needs to come out and identify that the gaming compacts auto-renewed January 1st. I think if he would come out in sincerity with however he wanted to say it or phrase it and say, look, I was incorrect. The gaming compacts auto-renewed. What was not in the compacts that people don't get a lot of times is there was a negotiation time period and then there was the auto-renewal. And if one side wanted to renegotiate, which I can tell you that in good faith that most of the tribes that I've dealt with in the legislature have always said, we want to renegotiate, and because we have some things we would like to accomplish too. And so they've always negotiated in good faith with the legislative body. But I think if he would come out and say, hey, look, they auto-renewed, it's clear. I would like to renegotiate. I think that would go a long way, but I just think he's so far in at this point that it's going to be a struggle. I mean, our tribal nations have lost faith. When they signed those two compacts a couple weeks ago, and there were things in there giving other land away and those things, it's just made it a real struggle.
It's sort of a repeat of some very bad history.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, where are we here? Representative Fedgetter, thank you so much for coming in to chat with me today. Looks like we're going to have some more talks in the future as different things pop up.
I'm happy to come on anytime you would like to have me and discuss any issues you'd like.
All right, and if the public wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
My cell phone number is 918-759-0178.
All right, Representative Scott Fedgetter joining us here on Muskogee Radio, here on the Brew. I want to say thank you, Mado Mabo Hedget, Scott, and we'll catch you again next week.
Mado.
You've You've been listening to Muskogee Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Madot.